35,000 feet above the Sea of Japan. The pilots have lost control of their plane. A 747 with 269 people on board plunges towards the sea. This shocking incident escalates tension between two bitter rivals. It's just after 2 in the morning aboard KAL Flight 007. After a brief layover in Anchorage, a Korean Airlines 747 is on its way to Seoul. The marathon flight originated in New York 13 hours ago. Captain Chun Byung-in has nearly 11 years' experience flying for Korean Airlines. Before that, he served 10 years in the Korean Air Force. This leg of the flight is a 6,100-kilometer journey over the North Pacific. Once the plane is in the air, there is very little for the pilots to do. Many of the passengers plan to take connecting flights to other destinations after landing in Seoul. In an effort to conserve fuel, the crew decides to take the plane to a higher altitude. Then, without warning, the plane is out of control. The crew extends the landing gear in an effort to stop the plane from climbing. Korean Airlines Flight 007 and all 269 people on board have vanished. All efforts to contact the flight have failed. Tokyo makes calls to other radar stations in Japan and Korea. A call is even made to a radar facility in the Soviet Union. As the world waits for news about the incident, US military officials make a horrible discovery. At a top-secret surveillance facility, they've been monitoring Soviet transmission. At the time of the flight's disappearance,
при нарушении государственной границы приблизиться к цели и уничтожить.
US soldiers heard what they thought was a routine Soviet training mission. It doesn't seem possible that the Soviets would actually shoot down a passenger plane. But American officials have little doubt. The next morning, US Secretary of State George Shultz delivers an unusually blunt statement.
The United States reacts with revulsion to this attack. Loss of life appears to be heavy. We can see no excuse whatsoever for this appalling act.
1983 is the height of the Cold War. Russia and much of Eastern Europe are united by communist ideology. Ruled with an iron fist, the Soviet Union is locked in a bitter political struggle with the West. Initially, Soviet officials deny responsibility for the KAL disaster. But soon they reverse course and come clean. A Soviet fighter jet did in fact shoot the plane down, but they insist the attack was justified. The Soviet Union claims Flight 007 entered highly restricted airspace under orders from the US government. But the US insists KAL 007 was a routine passenger flight. The dispute only heightens political tension. The KAL disaster would put NATO nuclear disarmament talks in jeopardy. The Soviets would ultimately walk away. The nuclear threat is growing. Under such circumstances, the need for an impartial inquiry is urgent. With two superpowers squaring off, they're under pressure to find answers, and find them fast. KAL 007's flight plan should have kept it well away from Soviet airspace. Either it was shot down over international waters, or the flight had strayed off course. Figuring out which is the first priority for investigators. But they face a huge obstacle. The plane's black boxes are still missing. The Americans joined forces with South Korea and Japan in the search for the crucial devices. But the three allied nations are not the only ones searching. It's a race to find the black boxes. The Americans know they may never get the truth if the Soviets find the boxes first. Each side accuses the other of dirty tricks. The Soviets claim Flight 007 was flying in Soviet airspace over Sakhalin Island when they shot it down. If that's true, the aircraft was well outside its designated aerial corridor, a route known as R20. Investigators get their first hint that if the crew was flying in restricted airspace, they didn't know it. The Tokyo air traffic controller who last communicated with Flight 007 tells investigators that all seemed normal. The crew reported they were flying the R20 route. But as with every other flight over the Pacific, 007 was beyond Tokyo's radar range. The controller could only rely on the pilots to verify their position. Perhaps they were mistaken about where they were. That possibility becomes more likely when investigators talk to the crew of the Korean Airlines flight that was just minutes behind Flight 007. In a rare move, US officials share highly classified surveillance data from the night of the shootdown. A top-secret technology called passive radar can track the movements of every military and civilian plane around the globe. What it reveals about KAL 007 is stunning. The plane was way off course. For almost its entire journey across the Pacific, the flight had been drifting north. By the time it was shot down, Flight 007 was 560 kilometers or 350 miles north of where it should have been, and had already flown in and out of Soviet territory. The Soviets were telling the truth. To find the answer, investigators turned their attention to the navigation system on board the 747. It's called INS, the Inertial Navigation System. The system relies on coordinates, or waypoints, entered into the flight controller. Waypoints are essentially GPS coordinates that also have one-word names. Flight 007's INS should have been programmed to find and follow those electronic guideposts to Seoul. Perhaps there was some last-minute change in the flight plan. After leaving Anchorage, the 747 flew out over the Pacific just as planned. But it never made it to the first waypoint. Instead, it drifted off course for more than 5 hours. Misprogramming the INS at the gate could have taken the plane over the Soviet Union. A second, less likely possibility is that after programming the waypoint navigation system, the crew may have failed to turn it on. In December 1983, less than 4 months after the disaster, though lacking hard evidence, the report concludes Flight 007 strayed into Soviet airspace by accident due to pilot error in operating the navigation system. The key to this mystery remains locked inside the plane's black boxes, which are assumed lost forever beneath the sea. In the months following the KAL disaster, unidentifiable human remains wash ashore in northern Japan. Small pieces of wreckage are also found. Investigators have no doubt that the plane was completely destroyed. Top Soviet officials are hiding the fact that 1 month after the incident, not only did they find the wreckage, they also found the all-important black boxes. The information is kept locked away. Until nearly 10 years later, after the turn of the decade brings a jubilant end to the Cold War. Eager to break with the past, the new administration in Moscow decides to go public. In 1992, during official ceremonies in Seoul, Russian leader Boris Yeltsin hands over the long-awaited flight recorders. Investigators confirm that the CVR handed over by the Russians is the same box that was installed on Flight 007. Now that they know they have the right boxes, investigators need to make sure they have not been tampered with. The test confirms that no data was added or removed from the cockpit voice recorder when it was spliced together. But all they hear is idle banter from the crew. There is not a word on the tape to suggest the crew was on a spy mission. It seems unlikely that KAL 007 was on a spy mission, but it was caught flying over Soviet territory. The flight data recorder finally provides the definitive answer. The crew of KAL 007 never activated the waypoint navigation system. It seems they simply forgot a basic step in their standard flight procedure. It was human error. A complacent crew in the middle of the night had their flight computer on the wrong setting, and then didn't notice they were straying off course. As the passengers sleep through their long journey, the Soviets scramble fighters to intercept the plane. The plane leaves Soviet airspace and continues along its heading to Seoul. The airliner is just seconds from flying over the island of Sakhalin. KAL Flight 007 enters Soviet airspace for the second time. Major Gennady Osipovich, the lead fighter, makes visual contact with Flight 007. But the warning shots go unnoticed. The fighter pilot believed the 747 was an enemy spy plane. After nearly 10 years and the collapse of the communist regime, he finally tells his side of the story.
I could see 2 rows of windows which were lit up. I wondered if it was a civilian aircraft. Military cargo planes don't have such windows. I wondered what kind of plane it was, but I had no time to think. I had a job to do. I started to signal to him in international code. I informed him that he'd violated our airspace. He did not respond. My orders were to destroy the intruder. I fulfilled my mission.
And then a horrible coincidence seals the fate of 269 people aboard the flight. Like a car going uphill, a climbing plane slows down. But to the fighter pilot following the 747, this is interpreted as an evasive maneuver. Osipovich fires 2 air-to-air missiles. One of them explodes near the tail, damaging vital controls and hydraulic lines. The warhead also tears a hole in the fuselage, causing a rapid decompression in the cabin. The stricken jetliner plummeted towards the Sea of Japan, with most of its passengers likely still conscious.